A quiet night turns chaotic. The fluorescent lights of Memorial General Hospital hummed their usual midnight song. Natalie Brooks wiped the exhaustion from her eyes as she finished updating patient charts at the nurses' station. 3 years in the emergency department had taught her to recognize the rhythm of night shifts. The calm moments were deceptive, just breaths between storms. Her sneakers squeaked against the polished floor as she walked toward the break room. The coffee machine beckoned like an old friend. Just as she reached for a disposable cup, the automatic doors burst open with a violence that made her jump. 2 men in expensive suits practically carried a third between them. The injured man's white dress shirt was soaked crimson, his head hanging forward. In the harsh overhead light, Natalie caught a glimpse of his face. Strong jawline, dark hair falling across his forehead, and an expression that mixed pain with something harder. Determination, maybe, or defiance. Her training kicked in immediately. The coffee was forgotten. "Get him on a gurney now," Natalie commanded, her voice cutting through the sudden chaos. She grabbed gloves from the nearest dispenser, snapping them on as she moved. What happened? The 2 men exchanged glances, but said nothing. One had a scar across his cheek. The other wore an earpiece that caught the light. Both looked more like bodyguards than friends. "I need information to help him," Natalie insisted, her hands already assessing the wound as they transferred the injured man onto the hospital bed. She cut away the ruined shirt with surgical scissors, revealing a deep laceration across his ribcage. Clean edges. This was no accident. It's a knife wound, she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Her fingers moved quickly, checking his pulse, his breathing, the depth of the cut. He needs stitches and probably antibiotics. When did this happen? 30 minutes ago, the scarred man finally answered, his voice gruff. Natalie looked up sharply. "You waited 30 minutes to bring him here." "He could have bled out." "He insisted on waiting," the other guard said quietly. The injured man's eyes fluttered open. They were gray, the color of storm clouds, and despite his condition, they locked onto Natalie with startling intensity. No pleading, no fear. Just a strange assessment, as if he was trying to memorize her face. "Can you tell me your name?" Natalie asked, keeping her voice professional despite the way his gaze unsettled her. His lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then, barely a whisper, "Does it matter?" "It matters for your medical records," she replied, preparing the antiseptic solution. "This is going to hurt." She poured the liquid over the wound. His jaw clenched, muscles tensing beneath his skin, but he made no sound. Not even a sharp intake of breath. Natalie had treated hundreds of injuries, and most people at least flinched. This man absorbed the pain like he was used to it. "Stubborn and mysterious," she said, threading the needle. "Great combination." Was that almost a smile on his lips? It vanished so quickly she might have imagined it. Questions without answers as Natalie worked. Her mind raced with questions. The expensive suits on the guards, the quality of the injured man's watch, visible despite the blood, the way they had arrived without calling ahead, without going through normal emergency protocols. Everything about this screamed trouble. "Should file a police report," Natalie said as she began stitching. Each movement was precise, practiced. "Knife wounds are supposed to be reported." "No police," the injured man said, his voice stronger now. "Just fix it." "I'm fixing it," Natalie shot back. "But whoever did this might try again. You need protection." The scarred guard actually laughed at that, though there was no humor in it. "He has plenty of protection. Obviously not enough tonight." Natalie paused in her stitching to meet the injured man's eyes again. "What kind of life requires this much security and still ends with you bleeding on my table?" "The complicated kind," he answered softly. She shook her head and continued working. The cut was deep but clean. No major organs affected, thankfully. Still, the blood loss was concerning. As she finished the final stitches, she reached for gauze and medical tape. "You need to stay for observation," Natalie told him firmly. "At least until morning. Blood loss can cause delayed complications." Just that. One word, final, as a door closing. You could pass out. You could develop an infection. "You could. I appreciate your concern," he interrupted, sitting up slowly, despite her protests. His face went pale, but his expression remained controlled. "But I have somewhere to be." Natalie put her hand on his chest, stopping him. His skin was warm beneath her palm. His heart beat strong despite everything. "Listen to me. I did not spend the last hour putting you back together just so you can tear yourself apart again. Sit down." For a moment, something flickered in those gray eyes. Surprise, perhaps. Maybe even respect. He was clearly not used to being challenged. "You have a family waiting for you?" Natalie asked, softening her tone. "Someone who is worried." "No family," he said quietly. "Just business associates who depend on me staying alive." The vulnerability in that admission caught her off guard. Here was a man who could afford expensive clothes and personal security, yet he spoke of his life with such emptiness. No mention of friends, of loved ones, only business. 24 hours, Natalie negotiated. "Stay here 24 hours. Let us monitor you properly. Then you can return to your complicated life." He studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he nodded. 12 hours. "That is my final offer. Deal." Natalie agreed, surprised he had compromised at all. The morning after Natalie finished her shift at 6 in the morning, her body aching with exhaustion. The mysterious patient had been moved to a private room, and she had checked on him twice more during the night. Each time she found him awake, staring at the ceiling as if sleep was an enemy he refused to surrender to. She drove home through empty streets, watching the city wake up around her. Her apartment was small but comfortable, a third-floor walk-up in a quiet neighborhood. All she wanted was a hot shower in her bed. The shower helped wash away the antiseptic smell and the tension in her muscles. She was toweling her hair dry when she heard it. Voices outside. Not the usual morning sounds of neighbors leaving for work. These were different, official commanding. Natalie walked to her living room, window, and froze. Black SUVs lined the street like a motorcade. Men and women in dark suits stood at attention, some speaking into earpieces, others scanning the buildings with professional wariness. One had positioned himself directly at her building's entrance. Another stood beside a vehicle, hand resting near his jacket in a way that suggested a concealed weapon. "What in the world?" Natalie breathed, her heart beginning to race. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. "Unknown number." She almost did not answer, but curiosity won out. "Miss Brooks?" The voice was unfamiliar, but polite. Professional. "My name is Trevor Walsh. I am head of security for Dominic Hayes. May I come up?" "I promise this will only take a few minutes." Dominic Hayes. The name triggered something in her memory. She had heard it before, but where? Natalie's brain was too tired to make the connection immediately. "Security for who?" she asked carefully. "The gentleman you treated last night at Memorial General. Mr. Hayes wanted me to explain the situation and ensure your safety." Her safety? Natalie looked out the window again at the small army gathered below. This was about ensuring her safety. "Give me 5 minutes," she said, hanging up. She quickly changed into jeans and a sweater, her mind racing. What had she gotten herself into by helping a stranger? She ran a brush through her damp hair and tried to calm her breathing. Whatever this was, she would face it head-on. The knock came exactly 5 minutes later. Natalie opened the door to find a tall man in his 40s, short gray hair and the bearing of someone who had spent time in the military. His suit was immaculate, his expression neutral, but not unfriendly. "Miss Brooks, thank you for seeing me," Trevor said, extending his hand. "May I come in?" Natalie shook his hand and stepped aside. Trevor entered, his eyes quickly scanning the small apartment with professional efficiency. Not threatening, just observant.
"I will be direct,"
Trevor began, remaining standing. "The man you treated last night is Dominic Hayes, founder and CEO of Hayes Technologies. He is one of the wealthiest individuals in the country, and unfortunately, that wealth comes with significant risks. Hayes Technologies? The name clicked into place now. The tech giant behind revolutionary software that had changed how businesses operated globally? Natalie had seen articles about them, though she had never paid much attention to business news. He was attacked last night by individuals who want to harm him, possibly kill him, Trevor continued. We have reason to believe those same individuals know you treated him. They may see you as a potential weakness or a source of information. Natalie's legs suddenly felt weak. She sat down heavily on her couch. You are saying I am in danger because I did my job. We are saying we want to prevent any danger before it occurs, Trevor corrected gently. Mr. Hayes takes the safety of those around him very seriously. He has instructed me to provide you with protection until we determine the level of threat. Protection, Natalie repeated, gesturing toward the window. Is that what all those people outside are? Because it looks more like an occupation. A small smile touched Trevor's lips. I admit the team may have been overzealous in their deployment. We will reduce the visible presence immediately. However, I must insist on keeping at least 3 operatives nearby, discreetly. Natalie stood up, pacing the small space between her couch and kitchen. This was insane. Yesterday, her biggest concern had been whether the hospital would approve her vacation days. Now, she had bodyguards and threats from unknown enemies. I did not ask for any of this, she said firmly. I helped someone who was hurt. That is what I do. That is my job. I understand your frustration, Trevor replied calmly. But the reality is that your involvement, however innocent, has put you on the radar of dangerous people. Mr. Hayes would never forgive himself if something happened to you because of him. Natalie stopped pacing and looked at Trevor directly. How long? We are not certain yet. A few days at minimum while we investigate and neutralize any threats. Possibly longer. I have to work. I have a life. I cannot just hide in my apartment with guards outside. We will not interfere with your normal routine, Trevor assured her. You will go to work, see your friends, live your life. You will simply have companions, ensuring nothing goes wrong. There was something in his tone that made Natalie pause. This was not just about duty or following orders. Trevor genuinely seemed concerned for her well-being. And if I refuse? She asked, though she already suspected the answer. Then we will respect your wishes, Trevor said carefully. But I would strongly advise against it. These are not people who hesitate to hurt innocent civilians. Natalie closed her eyes, trying to process everything. When she opened them again, she saw her reflection in the window glass, with the dark vehicles visible below. Her ordinary life had just become extraordinary, whether she wanted it or not. Fine, she said finally, but I have rules. No one enters my apartment without permission. No following me into exam rooms at work. Indefinitely no intimidating my neighbors or blocking traffic. Agreed? Trevor extended his hand again. Agreed. Thank you for your cooperation, Miss Brooks. As Trevor left, Natalie sat back down on her couch, suddenly aware of how much her hands were shaking. She picked up her phone and scrolled to Rachel's contact. Her best friend would think this entire situation was either a nightmare or the plot of a romance novel. Before she could call, another text came through. Unknown number again, but somehow she knew who it was. I apologize for the disruption to your morning. Trevor will minimize the visible security. Thank you for saving my life last night. I am in your debt. DH. Natalie stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back, You are welcome. But next time you need medical attention, maybe try not to bring a full security detail to my doorstep. It is bad for the neighborhood property values. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. 3 dots appeared immediately, indicating he was typing. Then, noted, I promise the next time I am stabbed, I will be more considerate about the aftermath. Despite everything, despite the fear and confusion and exhaustion, Natalie found herself smiling. What had started as a routine night shift had turned into something completely unpredictable. She had no idea where this path would lead, but something told her there was no going back to normal now. Outside her window, she watched 2 of the SUVs pull away, leaving only one remaining. A small victory in maintaining some sense of normalcy. Natalie stood and walked to her bedroom, deciding she might as well try to get some sleep before her next shift. As she lay down, her phone buzzed one more time. Another message from Dominic Hayes. Sleep well, Natalie Brooks. And thank you again. More than you know, she saved his number under complicated patient and set her phone aside. Tomorrow, she would figure out how to navigate this new reality. Tonight, she would rest and hope that when she woke up, perhaps this would all make more sense. But deep down, she knew better. Her life had just collided with Dominic Hayes. Nothing would ever be quite the same again. Crossing the line, Elate woke to the sound of her phone ringing insistently. She fumbled for it, squinting at the bright screen. Rachel Kim's name flashed urgently. "Hello?" Natalie's voice was rough with sleep. "Girl, you need to check the news right now," Rachel practically shouted through the phone. "You are not going to believe what I am seeing." Natalie sat up, confused. "What are you talking about?" "What news?" "Just open any news app. Search Dominic Hayes. Call me back when you pick your jaw up off the floor." The line went dead. Natalie opened her browser and typed the name. The first headline made her stomach drop. Tech billionaire Dominic Hayes attacked. Sources say mysterious nurse saved his life. Below it, another. Who is the woman who rescued Silicon Valley's most eligible bachelor? And another. Hayes Technologies CEO survives assassination attempt. Puts full security detail on an unknown hospital worker. There was a photo. Grainy, taken from a distance, but unmistakably her apartment building with the black SUVs parked outside. Someone had leaked the story, and now her private act of doing her job had become public spectacle. Natalie's hands shook as she scrolled through article after article. Some painted her as a hero. Others speculated about her relationship with Dominic. A few even suggested she might have been involved in the attack itself. The comments sections were brutal, filled with conspiracy theories and cruel judgments from people who knew nothing about her. Her phone rang again. This time, it was Trevor Walsh. "Brooks, I assume you have seen the news coverage," he said without preamble. "We are working to identify the source of the leak and contain the story. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you stay home today. There are reporters gathering outside your building." Natalie went to her window and peered down through the curtain. Sure enough, several vans with satellite dishes had joined the remaining security vehicle. People with cameras milled about on the sidewalk, some pointing up at her building. "This is unbelievable," she whispered. "I just wanted to help someone." "No, and I am truly sorry," Trevor said, and he sounded genuine. "Mr. Hayes would like to speak with you directly if you are willing. He wants to apologize in person and discuss options for managing this situation." "Options?" Natalie laughed bitterly. "What options? The story is already out there. My face is on the internet. I cannot exactly pretend this never happened. Please, just meet with him. He may be able to help more than you think." Against her better judgment, Natalie agreed. An hour later, a different vehicle arrived, this one with tinted windows dark enough that no cameras could see inside. Trevor himself came to her door to escort her down through the back entrance of the building. Away from the reporters, the man behind the name The car drove for 20 minutes before pulling into an underground parking garage beneath a gleaming high-rise building. Hayes Technologies headquarters. Natalie realized as they took a private elevator that rose so quickly her ears popped. The doors opened directly into a penthouse. Office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking, the kind of perspective that made everyday problems seem small. But Natalie's problems felt anything but small right now. Dominic Hayes stood with his back to the elevator, hands in his pockets, looking out at the skyline. He turned when he heard them enter, and Natalie was struck by how different he looked from the bleeding man on her exam table. His dark suit fit perfectly, emphasizing broad shoulders and a lean build. His face, which had been pale with pain and blood loss, now had color and definition. Strong features, sharp cheekbones, and those same storm-gray eyes that had studied her so intently. A white bandage peeked out from beneath his collar, the only evidence of what he had endured. "Thank you for coming," Dominic said, his voice deeper and steadier than it had been in the hospital. "I know this is not how you planned to spend your day off." "I did not plan on becoming tabloid fodder either," Natalie replied, surprised by her own boldness. "But here we are." Flash of something crossed his face. "Amusement? Respect? Direct. I appreciate that." He gestured to a seating area near the windows. "Please, sit." Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? Answers would be nice, Natalie said, but she sat down on the leather sofa. It was probably worth more than her entire apartment. Dominic sat across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. The posture made him seem less intimidating, more human. What do you want to know? Everything. Who attacked you? Why? And why am I suddenly in the middle of it? He took a breath, choosing his words carefully. I have a business rival named Julian Crane. We have been competing for years over contracts, patents, market share. Usually it stays in boardrooms and courtrooms. But Julian has become desperate. His company is failing, and he blames me for it. Desperate enough to try to kill you? Natalie asked. Apparently, we have evidence linking him to the men who attacked me. They are in custody now, but Julian himself is still free. He has resources and connections. Dominic paused, his jaw tightening. And now, he knows about you. A chill ran down Natalie's spine. What does that mean? It means he sees you as leverage. Someone I might care about protecting. Someone he could use to hurt me or force my hand in business negotiations. But you do not even know me, Natalie protested. We met once. I treated your wound. That is it. Dominic's eyes met hers, and there was something intense in his gaze that made her breath catch. Does that matter to someone like Julian? He sees a connection, real or imagined, and he will exploit it. The moment the news broke with your name and face, you became a target. Natalie stood up, pacing to the window. The city spread out below her, millions of people living normal lives, while hers spiraled into chaos. So what am I supposed to do? Hide forever? Change my identity? No. Dominic stood too, moving to stand beside her at the window. We make you untouchable. She turned to look at him. How? By making our connection official. If you are openly under my protection, if the whole world knows you matter to me, Julian would have to be suicidal to touch you. It would bring down the full weight of my resources and the legal system on him. You want to announce that I matter to you? Based on what? One night in an emergency room, Dominic was quiet for a moment, his eyes scanning the horizon. The truth does not matter as much as the perception. If people believe you are important to me, that is enough to keep you safe. Natalie's mind raced. You are talking about pretending. A fake relationship. I am talking about a partnership, he corrected. You need protection. I need to remove you as a vulnerability Julian can exploit. This solves both problems. And what would this partnership involve, exactly? Public appearances together. You would move into a secure residence, at least temporarily. Attend some social events with me. Let photographers see us together. Make it believable. Natalie laughed, but there was no humor in it. You were asking me to fake date a billionaire to avoid being kidnapped by your business rival. Do you realize how insane that sounds? Completely, Dominic agreed, and for the first time, she saw a hint of a smile on his lips. But it is the reality we are facing. I will not let Julian Crane hurt you because you made the mistake of saving my life. There was something in his voice, a protective edge that surprised her. This was not just business strategy to him. He genuinely felt responsible for putting her in danger. If I agree to this, Natalie said slowly, I have conditions. I still work at the hospital. I still see my friends. I do not become some kept woman hiding in a tower. Agreed. Your life continues as normally as possible, just with better security and occasional public appearances. And when the threat is over, when Julian is dealt with, Dominic's expression became harder to read. Then you go back to your life, and I go back to mine. No strings attached. Should have been reassuring, this clear definition of boundaries. But something about it felt hollow. Natalie pushed the feeling aside. She barely knew this man. Whatever strange connection she felt was probably just adrenaline and stress. Okay, she finally said. I will do it. But only until this is resolved. Dominic extended his hand. You have my word. When she shook his hand, his grip was warm and firm. For just a moment, she felt the calluses on his palm, unexpected on a man who worked behind a desk. There was more to Dominic Hayes than expensive suits and corporate power. Learning to play.
Oh,
The part the next week was a whirlwind of new experiences. Natalie moved into a guest suite in Dominic's penthouse, a space larger than her entire apartment with its own bathroom sitting area, and a view that never stopped being surreal. Trevor assigned her a personal security detail. Diana, a former Secret Service agent, became her shadow at the hospital. Kevin and James rotated shifts covering her when she left the building. They were professional and unobtrusive, but their presence was a constant reminder that her life had changed. Dominic was gone most days, running his company from early morning until late evening. When he was home, he kept to his own spaces, respecting her privacy. But in the evenings, they would meet to plan their public strategy. "There's a charity gala this weekend," Dominic said one night, as they sat in his living room reviewing his social calendar. "It is perfect for our first major public appearance together. High profile but controlled environment." Natalie looked down at the event details on her tablet. $1,000 plate dinner for children's education initiatives. "I approve of the cause, at least. Should. You will be giving a speech about the importance of healthcare access for underprivileged children." Her head snapped up. "Excuse me, you are a nurse? You work with pediatric patients. Your perspective is valuable, and it makes our relationship seem more substantive. Not just a billionaire and his flavor of the month." Natalie bristled at the phrase. "Is that what people are calling me?" Dominic's expression softened. "Some, but we are going to change that narrative. When they see you speaking with passion about something that matters, when they understand you are not just beautiful, but intelligent and committed to helping others, they will take you seriously." He thought she was beautiful. Natalie tried to ignore the flutter in her chest at those words. This was fake. A performance. She could not let herself forget that. "I have never given a speech at a gala," she admitted. "You talk to frightened parents and sick children every day," Dominic countered. "This is easier. They are just wealthy people trying to feel good about writing checks. Be yourself, and they will love you." Over the next few days, Natalie wrote and rewrote her speech with input from Dominic's public relations team. She also endured a shopping trip with a stylist who assured her that her normal wardrobe would not suffice for high society events. The night of the gala, Natalie stood in front of her mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress was deep emerald green, elegant but not overly revealing, with delicate beading that caught the light. Her hair had been styled in soft waves, and her makeup was subtle but polished. A knock on her door made her turn. Dominic entered, then stopped abruptly. He paused, seeming to search for words. Stunning. He looked different too. His tuxedo fit him perfectly, making him seem even taller and more commanding. But it was the way he was looking at her that made her pulse quicken. Like she was not just part of a plan, but someone he genuinely wanted to be seen with. "Thank you," Natalie managed. "You clean up pretty well yourself." The drive to the gala was quiet, both of them lost in thought. When they arrived, photographers lined the red carpet, flashes already firing as other guests made their entrances. "Remember?" Dominic said softly as their car pulled up. "We are a couple who met under unusual circumstances, but found something real. You are nervous, but excited. I am protective, but proud. Can you do that?" Natalie took a deep breath. "I spent 3 years in emergency rooms. I can handle a party." Dominic smiled, really smiled, and it transformed his usually serious face. "That is my girl." He stepped out first, then offered his hand to help her from the car. The moment they appeared together, the camera flashes intensified. Natalie forced herself to smile, to walk confidently beside Dominic as he guided her with a hand on the small of her back. "Mr. Hayes, who is your date tonight?" A reporter called out. "This is Natalie Brooks," Dominic said warmly, pulling her slightly closer. "She is the extraordinary woman who saved my life recently." "Are you two dating?" "We are getting to know each other," Dominic replied smoothly. "And I am very grateful she agreed to join me tonight." They moved inside, and Natalie finally allowed herself to breathe. The ballroom was spectacular, with crystal chandeliers and tables decorated with elaborate floral arrangements. Servers moved through the crowd with champagne and appetizers. "You did great," Dominic murmured in her ear. Natural. Throughout the evening, they circulated together. Dominic introduced her to business associates, politicians, and celebrities. Each time he spoke about her with respect and admiration, highlighting her work as a nurse and her dedication to helping others. When it came time for speeches, Natalie's hands were shaking as she approached the podium. But then she saw children's faces in a video playing behind her, kids who needed medical care but could not afford it. She thought of her young patients at Memorial General, and suddenly she knew exactly what to say. She spoke from the heart about little Noah with his plastic dinosaur, about families who had to choose between medicine and rent, about the nobility of healing and the responsibility society had to protect its most vulnerable members. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Dominic was waiting as she stepped down from the stage. "That was incredible," he said, and there was something in his eyes that looked almost like pride. "You just convinced half the people in this room to double their donations." Natalie said, still riding the adrenaline high. "Exactly." Dominic took her hand, leading her to the dance floor as the orchestra began playing. "Dance with me?" Natalie hesitated. "I should warn you, I am not great at formal dancing. Follow my lead." "Trust me." She let him pull her into his arms, one hand at her waist, the other holding hers gently. They moved together slowly, and Natalie was surprised by how natural it felt. "How right." "Thank you for tonight," Dominic said quietly as they swayed. "I know this is not easy, playing this role." "It is getting easier," Natalie admitted. Then, more boldly, "Sometimes it does not even feel like playing." Dominic's eyes searched hers, and for a moment the noise of the party faded away. There was only the two of them, moving in perfect rhythm. The space between them charged with something neither was ready to name. "Dominic." A sharp voice cut through the moment. They both turned to see a man approaching, his smile broad, but his eyes cold. He was in his 50s, impeccably dressed, with silver hair and the bearing of someone used to commanding attention. "Julian," Dominic said, and Natalie felt him tense. "I did not realize you were invited." "I donate generously to this cause every year," Julian Crane replied smoothly. His gaze shifted to Natalie, assessing. "And you must be the famous nurse, the one who has captured our Dominic's heart so quickly." There was mockery in his tone, an edge that made Natalie's skin prickle with unease. "Natalie Brooks," she said, keeping her voice steady. "And yes, I am a nurse. I do not know about the famous part." "Oh, you are quite famous now, my dear. Your face has been all over the news." It must be overwhelming, suddenly being thrust into Dominic's dangerous world. All those threats and security concerns, a fragile thing like you must find it terrifying. "I am tougher than I look," Natalie said, lifting her chin. "I am sure you are," Julian replied, but his tone suggested he thought otherwise. He turned back to Dominic. "We should talk business soon. I have a proposal that might interest you." "I doubt that," Dominic said flatly. "We have nothing to discuss." "Oh, I think we do. Especially now that you have so much more to lose." Julian's eyes flicked meaningfully to Natalie before he walked away. The threat was clear, even unspoken. Natalie felt a chill, despite the warmth of the crowded ballroom. "He knows," she whispered. "He knows this is for show," maybe Dominic said grimly. "Or maybe he is just testing us. Either way, we need to be more convincing." He pulled her closer, lowering his voice. "I am sorry. I should have expected him to be here." "It is not your fault," Natalie said, though her heart was racing. Seeing Julian in person made the danger feel immediate and real. They left the gala shortly after, both too unsettled to enjoy the rest of the evening. In the car, Dominic was silent, his jaw tight with tension. "Talk to me, Natalie," finally said. "What are you thinking?" That I underestimated how bold Julian would be. Approaching us directly like that, making veiled threats. He is not afraid, which means he thinks he has leverage we do not know about yet. "What kind of leverage?" Dominic shook his head. "I do not know. But Trevor is already investigating. We will figure it out." Back at the penthouse, Natalie changed into comfortable clothes and found Dominic in his office, staring at his computer screen with fierce concentration. "Should get some sleep," she said from the doorway. "So should you," he countered without looking up. "But I am guessing neither of us will." Natalie entered the room and sat in one of the chairs facing his desk. "Can I ask you something personal?" That got his attention. He looked up, his expression guarded. "You can ask." "I may not answer. Why do you not have anyone?" "You said that night in the hospital that you have no family. But someone like you, successful," and she paused, searching for the right word, "attractive. Why are you alone?" Dominic leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Because everyone wants something. My wealth, my connections, my influence. It is exhausting trying to figure out who actually cares about me versus who cares about what I can do for them." "That sounds lonely." "But it is," he admitted. "But it is safer than being betrayed by someone you trusted." Natalie understood then. Beneath the confidence and power, Dominic Hayes was someone who had been hurt before. Someone who had built walls to protect himself. "For what it is worth," she said softly, "I did not know who you were that night. I just saw someone who needed help. And I would have done the same thing, even if you were not rich or powerful." Something shifted in Dominic's expression, a crack in his armor. "I know. That is why I trust you, Natalie. You are one of the few people in my life who wants nothing from me. Except that was not entirely true anymore, was it?" Natalie found herself wanting something she could not quite define. His smile, his attention, the way her heart sped up when he looked at her. But those were dangerous wants in a fake relationship. "Get some rest," Dominic said, his voice gentler now. "Tomorrow, we keep playing our parts. But tonight, you can just be yourself." Natalie nodded and left, but as she lay in bed unable to sleep, she wondered which was getting harder, playing the role of his girlfriend, or remembering it was only pretend, when everything falls apart 3 weeks into their arrangement. Natalie had almost convinced herself that the danger was overblown. Yes, there were still security guards and public appearances. But nothing truly frightening had happened since the night at the gala. Julian Crane had been quiet. No more threats or confrontations. She should have known it was too good to last. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Natalie had insisted on going to her favorite coffee shop near the hospital. Diana was with her, trying to blend in while obviously scanning for threats. Natalie had just ordered her usual vanilla latte when her phone rang. Rachel's name appeared on the screen. "Hey, I'm just grabbing coffee before my shift," Natalie answered. "What's up?" "Thank God you answered." Rachel's voice was strained, frightened. "Natalie, something is wrong. There are men at my apartment asking about you. They do not look like police. They look like..." The line went dead. Natalie's blood turned to ice. "Rachel? Rachel?" Diana was already on her phone, speaking rapidly to someone. "We have a situation. Possible contact with the target's associates? I need backup at Brooks' location now. This is my friend Rachel," Natalie said, her voice rising with panic. "He is going after my friend because of me." "We will handle it," Diana assured her, but her expression was grim. "Right now, I need to get you somewhere secure." They left the coffee shop quickly, heading toward the waiting car. Natalie was about to get in when she heard it. A screech of tires. A van pulling up fast, too fast. The side door sliding open. "Get down!" Diana shouted, pushing Natalie behind the car. But it was not Diana they wanted. 2 men grabbed Natalie before she could react, dragging her toward the van. She screamed, fighting with everything she had, but they were stronger. One clamped a hand over her mouth, while the other hauled her into the vehicle. The last thing she saw before the van door slammed shut was Diana on the ground, blood on her face, shouting into her radio. Then everything went dark as something covered her head. In the darkness, Natalie lost track of time. The van drove for what felt like hours but might have been only 20 minutes. Her hands were bound, the bag over her head making it hard to breathe. She fought against the rising panic, forcing herself to think clearly. Dominic would find her. Trevor and his team would track her down. She just had to stay alive long enough for them to arrive. When the van finally stopped, rough hands pulled her out and marched her into a building. She heard echoes, suggesting a large open space. A warehouse, maybe. Then she was pushed into a chair, and the bag was yanked from her head. The room was dim, lit by a few bare bulbs hanging from the ceiling. Concrete floors, metal beams, and the smell of oil and rust. Definitely a warehouse. 2 men stood guard near the door, both armed and sitting across from her. Looking perfectly composed in an expensive suit was Julian Crane. "Miss Brooks," he said pleasantly, as if they were meeting for tea. "I apologize for the dramatic extraction, but subtlety was no longer working. Where's my friend?" Natalie demanded, her voice shaking with anger and fear. "If you hurt Rachel, I swear." "Your friend is fine," Julian interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "We merely asked her a few questions." She was quite cooperative once we explained the situation. Relief flooded through Natalie, but it was quickly replaced by renewed fear. "What do you want?" "Something very simple, actually." Julian stood and walked closer, studying her like she was a puzzle to solve. "I want Dominic Hayes to sign over controlling interest in a property development project to my company. It is worth approximately $800 million. A steal, really, considering what I am offering in return," Natalie said flatly. "You think he will trade $800 million for me?" Julian smiled. "I think he has become quite attached to you, despite his best efforts to maintain emotional distance. The great Dominic Hayes, finally caring about someone. It makes him vulnerable, and I intend to exploit that vulnerability. He will not do it. We barely know each other." "Oh, I think he will." Julian pulled out his phone and showed her a video. It was footage from the charity gala, but edited to show only moments between her and Dominic. The way he looked at her during her speech, how he held her while they danced. The protective hand on her back as they left, it looked real. Because in those moments, maybe it had been... "Besides," Julian continued, pocketing the phone, "even if he does not care about you, he cannot afford to let me win. His pride alone will force his hand. Either he signs the contract, or he loses you publicly. His choice." A phone rang somewhere in the warehouse. One of the guards answered, listened, then held it out to Natalie. "For you," he said. Natalie took the phone with shaking hands. "Hello, Natalie." Dominic's voice was tight with controlled fury. "Are you hurt?" "No, not yet. Listen to me very carefully. I am going to get you out of there. No matter what it takes, I am coming for you. Dominic, do not give him what he wants. It is not worth it. I am not worth it." There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer, but no less intense. "You are wrong about that. You are worth more than any deal or property. Do you hear me, Natalie? You matter." Tears stung her eyes. This was supposed to be fake, a performance, but the emotion in his voice was real, devastatingly real. "Please," she whispered, "find another way." Julian took the phone from her hands, touching. "But here's how this works. Hayes, you have 2 hours to deliver the signed contracts to the location I am sending Trevor. If you do, Miss Brooks goes home unharmed. If you do not," he looked at Natalie with cold calculation, "well, accidents happen in abandoned warehouses. It would be tragic." He hung up and tossed the phone to one of the guards. Then he turned back to Natalie with a satisfied smile. "Now we wait." The rescued Dominic stood in his office, surrounded by Trevor and his security team, staring at a map on the large screen. Red dots marked possible locations based on cell tower pings and traffic camera analysis. "We have narrowed it down to 3 warehouses in the industrial district," Trevor reported. "Teams are en route to all 3. "That is not good enough," Dominic snapped. "We do not have time to check all 3. Julian will move her the moment he realizes we are searching. Then we force his hand," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Dr. Patricia Gordon entering the office, with Rachel Kim right behind her. They had come straight from the hospital after hearing what happened. "What are you doing here?" Dominic asked. "Rachel told me everything," Dr. Gordon said firmly. "And I have information that might help. I treated one of Julian's men 2 months ago for a broken arm. He mentioned working at a warehouse his boss owned near the river. He was very proud of the vintage car collections stored there." Trevor was already typing on his tablet. "Vintage cars. That matches property records for a warehouse registered under one of Crane's shell corporations. The northernmost location." "That is it," Dominic said with certainty. "That is where he is holding her." He headed for the elevator, but Trevor caught his arm. "Boss, let us handle this." You are too emotionally involved. You will make mistakes. Dominic pulled free, his eyes blazing. I am going. That is not negotiable. Assemble the team. 20 minutes later, a convoy of black SUVs rolled through the industrial district. Dominic rode in the lead vehicle, wearing a Kevlar vest over his dress shirt. In his hand was a phone with the signed contracts Julian had demanded. He had signed them. Every page. Because Trevor was right. He was emotionally involved. He could not think straight, knowing Natalie was in danger because of him. But he also had no intention of honoring those contracts. Once Natalie was safe, he would bury Julian Crane in so many lawsuits and criminal charges that the man would spend the rest of his life in prison. The warehouses loomed ahead. Trevor's team deployed with military precision surrounding the building. Thermal imaging confirmed multiple heat signatures inside. We have her location, Trevor said quietly through Dominic's earpiece. Second floor, northwest corner. For hostiles in the immediate vicinity. I am going in, Dominic said. Double quotes, sir. We should wait for. Dominic was already out of the vehicle, moving toward the main entrance. He had wasted enough time playing it safe. Natalie had saved his life. Now, it was his turn to save hers. The door was unlocked. Julian was expecting him. Dominic walked through the dark warehouse, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Above him, he could see dim light from the second-floor office area.
Ice.
Julian's voice called down. How punctual. Do you have what I asked for? I have the contracts, Dominic replied, his voice carrying through the empty building. Now let her go. Come up, and we will make the exchange. Dominic climbed the metal stairs, each step measured and deliberate. He reached the second floor and saw Natalie tied to a chair, her face pale but defiant. Their eyes met across the room, and he saw relief flash across her features. The contracts, Julian demanded. Standing beside Natalie with one hand resting possessively on the back of her chair, Dominic held up the folder. Let her go first. I do not think so. Contracts first, then she walks. It happened in seconds. Dominic tossed the folder, and as Julian reached for it, the window shattered. Trevor's team came through on ropes, moving with lethal efficiency. Dominic rushed forward, putting himself between Natalie and Julian's guards. One guard swung at him. Dominic blocked and countered, his body remembering the self-defense training he had maintained for years. The man went down hard. Another came at him, and this time Dominic felt the impact of a fist against his jaw, tasted blood, but he did not stop. He fought with desperation and fury, thinking only of getting to Natalie. Natalie's scream cut through the chaos. He turned to see Julian pulling a knife. It's the same type of blade that had wounded him weeks ago. But this time Dominic was ready. He caught Julian's wrist, twisted, and the knife clattered to the floor. This ends now, Dominic growled, slamming Julian against the wall. By then, Trevor's team had secured the other guards. It was over. Dominic rushed to Natalie, pulling a knife from his pocket to cut through the ropes binding her. The moment she was free, she threw her arms around his neck. You came, she whispered against his shoulder. You actually came for me. Of course I did, he said fiercely, holding her tight. Did you think I would just let him take you? She pulled back to look at him, and he saw tears streaming down her face. You signed the contracts. You were going to give up everything. Not everything. His hand came up to cup her face gently. I would have given up anything, but not you. Never you. Something broke open between them then, all the pretense and careful distance crumbling away. What started as a fake relationship to keep her safe had become something neither of them could deny any longer. I love you, Natalie said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. I know this started as an act, but somewhere along the way, it became real for me. You became real. Dominic's eyes widened, and for a moment he looked vulnerable in a way she had never seen. You love me, even knowing how dangerous my world is, even after everything you have been through. Especially after everything, she said firmly, because I have seen who you really are beneath all the power and money. You are someone who protects the people you care about. Someone who would risk everything for a woman you barely knew. That is the man I fell in love with. Natalie. He said her name like a prayer. I did not think I was capable of this. Of feeling this way about someone. But you make me want to try. You make me want to be better than I have been. You are already better than you think, she said, touching his face where a bruise was forming. You came for me. Oh, I will always come for you, he promised. From now on, no more fake anything. No more pretending. Just us figuring this out together. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like the careful, performative kisses they had shared for cameras. This was raw and real, filled with relief and fear and love that neither of them had planned on feeling. When they finally pulled apart, Trevor was standing nearby with a satisfied smirk. So I take it the protection detail just became permanent? Dominic kept his arm around Natalie. She is not going anywhere. And neither am I. New beginning 2 months later, Natalie stood in the pediatric ward of Memorial General, supervising the installation of new equipment. But this time, she was not just a nurse. She was also the director of the Hayes Foundation for Children's Healthcare, a position Dominic had created specifically for her. We are making a real difference, Rachel said, coming to stand beside her friend. Did you see the numbers? We have funded free clinics in 12 cities already. It is amazing what you can accomplish when you have resources, Natalie agreed. But also when you have people who genuinely care. She looked down at the ring on her left hand. Not an engagement ring, not yet. But a promise ring that Dominic had given her on their first real date after Julian's arrest. A commitment to building something lasting together.